if I'm ever a general manager, I never want to hire a coach that hasn't been fired before, because the adversity and the learning curve, the things you learn when you're dealing with a situation like that is just makes you that much of a better coach on and off the ice. And for a player, the same thing, those adverse situations when you're cut from a team or you lose a championship or you're not on the first line or the top pair D, how do you get out of that? And confidence, for me and my observation, is what pulls you out of that.
What's going on, guys? This is Brain from Advancement Hockey Advising here, and today we have a really cool interview here with Keith McCambridge. Now, for those of you who don't know Keith, he's basically played at the WHL level, the East Coast Hockey League level, and the AHL level as well. And he's had a great pro hockey career, and then from there he transitioned into coaching and has basically been coaching in the same level. So East Coast Hockey League, he coached in the AHL for a while, he was a really good coach there, and now he's currently coaching in the WHL for the Vancouver Giants. So Keith has a lot of knowledge that you guys should definitely take from him. He's dropping a lot of gold nuggets of wisdom here in this interview, and I hope you guys get a lot of value out of this. Before we dive into the interview here, if you guys like this kind of content, consider absolutely destroying that like button. And if you're new here and you want to see more content like this, consider hitting that subscribe button and notification bell so you never miss another video moving forward. All right, guys, without further ado, let's dive right into the interview here with Keith. All right, Keith, good having you here today. How are you?
I'm doing good. Braden, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks. So I guess we can dive into it with our first question here, which is, why don't you just tell the players and the parents a little bit about yourself, your hockey background, and your coaching background altogether?
Well, it's a lot. It's I played professionally for 11 years. Was drafted by the Calgary Flames back in 1995. Played with the Western Hockey League Kamloops Blazers and Swift Current Broncos, obviously before I was drafted, and then went on to play pro a little bit of everywhere. In Calgary's system, signed with the Boston Bruins after being with Calgary for 3 years. Played in between there. I played in the International Hockey League, which is a equivalent of the American Hockey League back 10, 12 years ago. They were kind of both jockeying between both leagues to see who would be the primary development minor league system for the National Hockey League. So I played in Long Beach, which at the time was Los Angeles's farm team, and Las Vegas as well, which was kind of a dual affiliate of a little bit of everybody. So, but enjoyed playing. I finished off my last couple of years in the ECHL. I had an offer which transitioned me into coaching. I had an offer to go be a player assistant coach back in would have been 2003, to be a player assistant coach up in Anchorage, Alaska. And I've always been one of those hockey players that, when I played from playing in the Western League in my first couple of years pro and throughout my pro career, I really enjoyed kind of seeing the X and O's part of the game, how the coaches motivated their group, different tactical things, how they approached the team, preparation before, how they dealt with a loss. But I was fortunate as a player that I played for some really good coaches along the way, guys that are still coaching now with, Peter Laviolette. I had him in Providence. I had Todd McClellan, who's in LA now. I had him in Houston, and I had him in junior as well. Randy Carlisle, I had him with the Manitoba Moose. Davis Payne, who's with the Ottawa Senators. Lots of coaches that I played for as a player that I was able to learn from, but I always knew I wanted to go behind the bench. So this Alaska opportunity, when I was slowly kind of, dwindling down with my age and injuries in hockey, this opportunity to be a player assistant coach in Anchorage, Alaska came up. And at first is a little leery, because when you think of Anchorage, Alaska, you think of igloos, and you think of even being from Manitoba, you think of cold weather. So I know cold weather, but it's, my wife and I went up there with my young daughter at the time. She was 6 months old, and we loved it. We loved it up there. Had a chance to, you dive in with both feet when you're in that league, the ECHL. And it, from everything from recruiting in the summertime to building a roster, to things you learn in the off season that a lot of coaches at the NHL, AHL don't have to deal with. Excel spreadsheets. There was no Google Docs back then, but fixing a printer when it's out of paper, ink, little things that are parts of the coaching side of things that make the administration side run easier. So went up there as a player assistant coach. And that was a little bit of a balancing act between being the captain of the team and the loyalty to the players and learning the trade of coaching.
That dives right into my next question here. And how do you balance that as a player coach? How do you not, go too much on one side where you're too buddy with the guys, but too much on the other side where you're dissociated from them? How do you balance that in a way?
The loyalty always to me was to my teammates, to the players. I'm in that room talking to as a captain of the team, talking to the players in between periods. I'm on the bench, on the ice, in the battle with your teammates. So the loyalty and trust was always with my teammates. And I was fortunate enough that the head coach at the time, he was intelligent enough to understand that is the pecking order that has to happen to be a player assistant coach, to be a captain. So it was for me, it wasn't that hard, to be honest, Braden. It was just, I've always been, you stick up for your teammates, a heart and soul guy when I played. So, balancing it a little bit at times was at first a little bit of a learning curve, but overall it was pretty seamless. But the loyalty always had to be first to your teammates.
And what do you think are the attributes that kind of got you into that leadership position? What do you think is the core things that you need to have to be a good leader?
Your belief in what you're talking about, what you stand for was always number one for me. Do you firmly believe in whether you're supporting someone's decision, whether you're voicing your opinion, that belief in what you're trying to relay to your teammates or as a coach to the rest of the players that are watching you. And it also comes from your upbringing a little bit. I was, my parents, my dad, he passed away in 2011, but was a very A and B kind of person, you always knew where you stood with them. And I picked up a lot of those traits as well. There's no gray area in between. So, and you just learn as well when you're fortunate enough to be around other people that are leaders, whether it's players, whether it's, as I talked about, the coaches that I was able to play for. When you have that presence, you need to, if you're going to be an NHL head coach or you're going to be American Hockey League head coach or whatever level you're going to coach at, when you walk in the room, you need to have that presence. And the team needs to know who's in charge. It's always inclusive as we move through the game of hockey and sports in general. But when there's questions and you're in a game 7 and you're down 4-0 after the first period, they need answers, and you need to have that presence and those resources and experience to be able to pull from and give your players or your teammates that belief that they can get the job done.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The teams that I've noticed that I've been on that where we were winning teams, it's when the coach was actually a really good leader and he had that presence. When everyone's panicking and all that kind of stuff, when things aren't going well, a good leader, a good coach can kind of just dial everyone back in, get everyone on the same page. And that's basically like how you can have a winning team. Whereas if you don't have that good of a leader, then the chaos just ensues and it doesn't go according to plan, So absolutely that presence is so important.
And I think of examples like I think of we played when I was coaching Alaska. We played South Carolina for the Kelly Cup final. So we were in Game 7, and the coach of South Carolina was Jared Bednar, who's a good friend of mine. He's in Colorado now, but he was coaching South Carolina. I was coaching Alaska Aces. You could imagine the travel there for the playoff series. It was a lot from South Carolina up to Anchorage. But I thought we had Game 7 at home. And we were down after the first period, and my number one centerman went down with a broken nose. He was out. We were down 3-1, coming on our home ice or after the first period, and just the chaos in between periods on everybody having a little bit, the players, all kind of trying to yell out and give opinions on what we need to be doing. And as a head coach, just walking in that room and saying, hey, we've been here before. We've had adverse situations during the season here. This is what we need to be. We've lost our number one center. We need guys always take a bigger bite of those minutes and make some tactical adjustments on ways to slow them down. So they need that calming presence, but also that direction in between periods. And you know what, as a coach, it's also a feel for your team. It's a feel for what kind of players do you have? Do you have players that thrive off a little bit of chaos? Do you have that, or do you have a younger team that maybe needs that calming presence in between periods, or even on the bench, Braden, when there's, I'm a firm believer in your team reads off what the head coach is doing behind them during the game. If he's out of control and a maniac and yelling at the referees and yelling at other players, your team's going to be the same way. It's not going to be a very professional team. They're going to be out of control. But if you're calm, cool, collected, your team's going to feed off that and have that poise under pressure. There's times that, whether you're playing a 3-on-3, the team might need a little bit of a spark in different situations during a game. But in my experience, the team feeds off 100% how that coach is, how he runs things behind the bench.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And the point you brought up where a coach is yelling all the time and all that stuff, to me, that shows a coach that's out of control, that doesn't have things together. Whereas the best coaches I've had, it's very rare that they yelled. It was very, very rare. They always seem to have things under control. And when they did yell, you knew something was really wrong if they did, So yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. My next question here is, it might be a bit of an unfair question because you've had great leaders, I'm sure, but who do you think is the best leader you've had and why?
Ooh, that's a good question. I've been lucky as a coach to coach a lot of great leaders along the way. I think of Adam Lowry was one, Josh Morrissey was one, Ben Sherratt, Ryan Lindgren in with the Rangers, and I'm probably missing some, but the one guy that would stick out to me, played a little bit in the NHL, but majority was in the minor leagues. We had Jason Jaffrey with the St. John's Ice Caps. So Winnipeg Jets farm team, was just a really good quality leader. Older guy, was a perfect example for these younger kids coming out of Europe or junior or college. Was a great leader for us. And things that he did was just every day you knew what you were going to get at him, and he set the tone for practice. He, if we were traveling, we did a lot of travel with St. John's, but let's say we were traveling on a bus trip from Providence down to Hershey, and we were stopping halfway to get a practice in, and we were in the back half of a 2-week road trip, and we did that a couple of times in some really cold rinks. You know what? He was on the ice, and he was the hardest working guy in practice. He was up and down the ice. He was setting the tone. And to the point of it, as a coaching staff, you look at each other, you're like, wow, it's minus 100 degrees out here on the ice. We're in some little shanty of a place in whatever little town, trying to get a little bit of practice time and development in for our group here. And here he is leading. And he was the best we had with that. And he, and you always know as a coaching staff, when your leader's doing a good job and when you're connected with each other, that when you're about to walk in that room, you'll hear, and I'm sure you've heard the same thing, Braden, you'll hear your leadership group talking about the same kind of message, the same kind of things that you've talked about as a coaching staff and with your leadership group. And when you walk out, they're relaying the same message and they believe it. But Jason he would have been the guy that sticks out for me over the years there, that was probably the best, most consistent leader that I've been able to coach.
Yeah, sounds like a great guy.
Yeah, really good guy. So
aside from leadership, what do you think are some other off ice things, character things that you look for in players as a coach?
Something I've learned here, because I've majority coached at the pro level. And then I had the opportunity to come and coach junior hockey here in the Western League with Vancouver, which was great. And I'm enjoying, but probably a thing that I wouldn't have thought of before that you don't see as much at the pro level, but you see it at the junior level, is your preparation. The preparation for practice, the preparation for games. A lot of these young players, and it's not their fault, they don't know any better. They're coming in from wherever it is, midget, or they're coming in from whatever, whether if it's a European player. What's your preparation for practice? Are you just putting your skates on and just checking your brain at the door and going through the 45-minute hour practice and then going home at the end of the day? Or are you trying to get something out of it? And for games, realizing how important they are, and realizing if you're a player that is potentially going to be drafted or just helping your team have success, how do you get yourself ready to bring your A game every single night, every single practice? And it might not always be an A game, but how do you keep it from being a C or a D and keeping it in between? That's the biggest thing for me that I've seen, that is the preparation for games and practices. And on top of that, not only the mental side preparation, but what are you eating? Are you getting sleep at night? Are you, I have young kids myself. I have a 19-year-old daughter, goes to college down at Ole Miss in Mississippi, and a son who just turned 16. So I have teenagers at home. So Are you on your phone at night? Are you on the video games? All that stuff is good, and I realize that's part of the world, but are you limiting it and making sure you get your rest and eating the proper food that is going to give you the energy to be able to have that extra overtime jump in your step? And I think of examples when things like that you see even at the pro level is, my first couple of years in Hartford coaching, it was okay to have pizza after games. It was okay. And that's pretty standard. And you never really gave it much thought, but MSG and the Rangers put an investment in, put some, nutritionists, and everybody brought in and said, you know what, no more pizza after the games. We're going to eat correct. So these athletes have enough energy to perform at their peak. So little details, that 1%, I like to call them, that little 1% that adds up to showcase yourself as a player and help your team. So preparation was probably the biggest thing I've learned here at the junior level for young players.
Yeah, for sure. A couple of things I want to touch on. So first is the preparation, where I feel like the best players have these routines in place where they can get into the zone and then get out of the zone when it's time, and I talked to other guys about this, but it really that preparation, that's the key, is to be able to get in the zone when it's time to practice, when it's time to play, and all that kind of stuff. So that's absolutely huge. I totally agree with that. I kind of want to touch on that a little bit more after. But the second thing you mentioned is like doing the right things off the ice, like sleeping well, eating well, all these things. It's a lot of guys like scoff at that and they kind of overlook it. It's like, does it really matter that much? In my experience, it does. Like if I eat the right things, and if I sleep right the night before a game and all that stuff, I feel so much better on the ice and more energized. I feel more awake. Whereas if I eat the wrong things, if I eat like pizza after a game and we got a game the next day, I'm just not feeling great for that next game, So it might seem like it's trivial, but it makes such a big difference in how you feel on the ice, for sure.
It really does. It most definitely does. Are you okay with not giving your best? If you're okay with having pizza and grabbing a quick cheeseburger at McDonald's, then, have at it. But if you want to get drafted or you want to, at the American League level, have the difference of making 1.5 million or making a minor league salary, then have your pizza and have your McDonald's. But if you want to actually invest in your future here, then that's an unlooked or an area of the game that a lot of young players I found overlooked. And even some guys at the pro level, their first couple of years, they have to learn that as well. But it's something you can control as an athlete, and most definitely it helps.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now, going back as to the stuff like the preparation, getting into it, how did you as a player kind of have like routines to prepare and get into the zone? And then I guess as a coach too, you probably have the same things to get into it for the game and be totally immersed in the zone. And then how do you, after the game, kind of get out of it in a way and not let it consume you, if that makes sense?
Yeah. So as a player, I was a player that I took the game serious. I wanted to make sure I was prepared the best I could. So I was a big believer in visualization. So I would visualize on different scenarios as a defenseman, going back for a puck under pressure. When you're behind the net, what are your options as a defenseman? You get the puck at the offensive blue line. What are you looking for? And depending on the kind of player you were, is it finishing a check? Is it going coast to coast? Those kind of things. I believed in a visualization part of it. And as I got older, I balanced both a lot better. And I wish I would have learned that or had that trait a little bit even when I was younger, my first couple of years pro. And it was, you prepare with practice. You prepare with your visualization, how you take care of yourself off the ice. And once the game starts, play the game. It's a game of hockey. Have fun with it. Read and react. Mistakes are going to happen. Good things are going to happen, but just play. But sometimes, I found as myself as a younger, I would overthink too much. And then when I got older, the back half of my career, I believed and understood that I prepared. I'm ready to go here. Once the puck drops, I step on the ice, then just play. And that worked. And I find as a coach, the second part is the elite athletes do simple better than everybody else on the ice. Their decision making, those outlet passes for defensemen, forwards in the offensive zone, creating open space, getting pucks to the net, little details, especially on the defensive side of the puck here with defensemen. And simple than anybody else also is the mental side of the game, is that when I've coached players that have been able to make it to the next level, a lot of them, one of the top qualities they have is they can turn the page. So mistakes are going to happen. You have you serve up a pizza in the middle of the ice, it's in the back of your net, or you miss an open net as a forward. That's going to happen. You can't come to the bench and sit and dwell on it, because your game will continue to just go south. So what I've observed and learned is that those top end players, they make mistakes the same as everybody else, But when they come to the bench, they're done. It's over. They're there the next shift. They're on to the next play. They're on to the next moment during the game there. So the ability to have that mental toughness to just turn the page and understand mistakes are going to happen and just keep playing through it. That's something that I believe strongly and have witnessed firsthand at the pro level. Those top end guys have that ability to do that.
Mike, so many great points that you said there. Absolutely. All right. So transitioning away a little bit from the off ice stuff, what about the on ice stuff as a coach? What are the key things that you look for in players on the ice? And I know that's a bit of a broad question. I know it varies by position and by player, but what are maybe some top 3 or 4 skills that you really value as a coach in players?
Skating would be top of the list. You have to be able to skate. The game is so fast. It's, everybody's up and down the ice really quick, and even gets magnified, the speed, the ability to get their A to B as you move up through the ranks. So skating is high on my list. Would be number 1 on my list, would be the ability to skate. The other one would be hockey sense, would be what are you doing when you don't have the puck to get in an area of the ice to get it back? Or when you have the puck, what are you reading with as a forward, areas to put the puck in? How do I create a little bit of room for myself to create an offensive zone scoring chance? As a defenseman, what are my reads with stick placement when I don't have the puck? What kind of angle am I taking to get it back? So the hockey sense on puck, what to do with the puck when you have it and where it's going when you don't have it is something that is really high on the list as well. And then another one on there that is really, you can't teach it, is will. That burning desire, that will to dig in, that will to compete, whether it's practice, whether it's games. You can't teach that competitive, that burning will that some of these athletes have inside. So when you're coaching a player, or even when you're scouting, watching from the stands, evaluating a player, if he gets knocked down, does he get back up again? Does he get frustrated? That will to win and push through adversity is something that I look for as well. And then last, but still high on the list, is character. What kind of person are you? Are you somebody that is, look for solutions? Or are you somebody that's going to point fingers and be on the negative side of things and point out problems? Do you have that character and presence, that leadership that you need to win? And not everybody's going to have top end character, but if you're building a team, the character players have to outweigh the guys that are kind of just, will just kind of fit in the middle of the group and go along with what everybody else is doing. So character for the individual player, if you're able to piece all those attributes I mentioned together, is obviously close to a home run for an athlete. And then when you have that character, those pieces in your lineup as a coaching staff, that's a recipe to have success for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Great points. You talked about the will and that some players just have it you can't really teach it. Where do you think that comes from? The will to go that extra mile. I know exactly what you're talking about, to have that compete and to work super hard and to make that extra effort to make the play. Where do you think that comes from? The will? I
think it starts with how you're brought up. It starts with how you're raised. I would say that it would be where the foundation of it is. And then the second part would be how you got to where you are. If you're coaching a guy in pro, chances are he's had to face a little bit of adversity. Or if it's a guy in junior, the same thing. There's been some adversity along the way where he's had to, push through and really have that desire to be the best player on the ice or to be the best part of himself, even under adverse conditions. So that's where I've seen it from, is those 2 points there, whether it's upbringing from your parents and 2, from the situations you've had to deal with getting to the point where we get them as a coach.
So you brought up adversity, and that was my next topic here. What do you think it takes to push through adversity? How do you what's the strategies you can kind of use to push through? Why do you think some players, kind of quiver and give up with adversity, and why are others able to just push through? What's your take on it?
Confidence in yourself, that belief to push through hard situations. We all know, when you look at different, like myself as a coach, if I'm ever a general manager, I never want to hire a coach that hasn't been fired before, because the adversity and the learning curve, the things you learn when you're dealing with a situation like that just makes you that much of a better coach on and off the ice. And for a player, the same thing, those adverse situations when you're cut from a team or you lose a championship, or you're not on the first line or the top pair D. How do you get out of that? And confidence, for me and my observation, is what pulls you out of that. Where do you get confidence from? You get confidence from past situations of, I've had success before. I've scored 20 goals. I've scored 10 goals. I've been a physical defenseman. I've had a great save percentage as a goalie. I've done it before, whatever level, if it's junior, college, Europe, or if it's coming out of bantam or midget, I've done this before. So pull from those experiences. And that gets you through those adverse conditions, because everybody goes through them. It's how you handle them and how you come out on the other end is going to be the difference maker on whether you make it or not.
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree more. I think pulling from the past successes you've had, saying, hey, I'm able to do this and have that confidence. And then also pulling from the past failures you had and you've got through, knowing that you're like, oh my God, I've done all of this little challenge I have right here. It sucks. It's not fun in the moment, but I'm able to pull through like I did in the past, And I think, I could agree.
100%, Brady. And I can think of two examples. I think of Ryan Lindgren when I coached him in Hartford. I remember him coming into my office, and they just called up a couple other defensemen ahead of him. And Ryan came in my office, and he's like, Keith, like, am I going to be in the minors forever here? Am I ever going to get called up to the Rangers here? And he was legit. He was like, this is it. Like, I'm not going to get my opportunity to play in the National Hockey League at MSG. And you know what? Just having that conversation with the player to continue on the path he's on and pushing through these adverse conditions, got him through that. And you look at him now, he's a huge part of that back end with the New York Rangers. And you love to see it, because those are conversations that us coaches love, that a player is able to find his way and you're able to help him with little things to believe in himself and get to the National Hockey League. And Ben Sherratt was another one. Ben's in Florida now, but I remember his first year pro, he was with us in St. John's, and we sent him down to the ECHL. We had that conversation. I talked to my boss, my general manager, Craig Heisinger, and we thought it was best for his development to go down to Colorado, our ECHL affiliate, play some games. And I remember having the conversation with him on the road. We were in Bridgeport, and said, Ben, we're going to send you down to the ECHL. And he was like, no, I'm not going. I can't go. And he's an entry-level contract, so he didn't have the option. But you know what? He went down there. He worked hard. He came back, and he was a great player for us. We had a team there in St. John's, went to the Calder Cup Finals, lost out to Texas, which was a really good team. But Ben was a big part of that. But those adverse conditions, again, made him the player he is today. And those are the things that you can either give up and say, you know what, I'm done, or you can keep pushing through and believing in yourself. Yep, absolutely. Couldn't say it better myself. So one final question I got for you is, what's maybe one last piece of advice you have for young players out there that we didn't touch on today? The part of the game that sometimes gets overlooked is make sure, again, you're doing all your, things that your coaches want you to do. Your skill set, all those kind of little trades, the off ice, taking care of yourself. But the biggest part is just stay true to yourself, stay true to the player that you are. There's a reason why you were drafted in whatever round in the National Hockey League, or if you're a free agent, or if you've come into the Western Hockey League, for training camp. There's a reason you're here. There's smart scouts, general managers, coaches that have brought you here for a reason. Stay true to your, the type of player you are. And showcase that. And along the way, have fun with it. Trust in your process of how you've prepared to get to whatever point you are, whether it's an NHL training camp or whether it's a Western Hockey League training camp. Trust in the process and believe in what you've done. And then when that opportunity comes to showcase itself, make sure you bring those pieces of your of what makes you the player you are. Awesome stuff. Well, Keith, that was awesome. I learned a ton just from talking to you. I'm sure the viewers learned a ton as well. Thanks so much for your time, for coming on board. It was a pleasure having you. No, I really enjoyed it, Braden. Thank you for having me. All right, thanks. Thanks. All right, guys, that is it for the interview. Hopefully you got some sort of value out of it. I know I did. I always learn a ton when I talk to these coaches because they have so much knowledge and wisdom to pass down to all us hockey players out here. So if you got some value out of this, if you enjoyed this type of video and you haven't already, consider absolutely destroying that like button. It really goes a long way here for the algorithm and for other people to see this kind of content. If you're new here and if you haven't already, and if you enjoy this kind of content, absolutely consider hitting that subscribe button and notification bell so you never miss another
another video moving forward. Also too, if you have any questions for me, our team, for Keith, anything like that, consider dropping a comment down below or send us a private email at info@ahadvising.com and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. All right guys, that is it for the video. Hopefully you guys got some value out of it. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching and we'll catch you on that next one.